Thank you so much for staying with us. Let's bring in our guest, Vrada Betnego, Technical Advisor on Communications and Strategy to Bayelsa State Governor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Another name for Niger Delta could be resource control through federalism. Obon Victor Atta, renowned and popular for continued agitations and advocacy for true federalism. And here you have Governor Doedro, so perhaps picking up the gauntlet from there, issue of how states of the federation, especially the other third-tier local governments, were created in Nigeria. The conclusion out there from him is that there's some sense of imbalance, that some states such as Bayelsa were not fairly treated in the distribution. 8 local governments, while some states have as much as 44.
Yeah, I think to a large extent, sometimes those of us who are from that part of the country, we feel like we are not part of this country because of the gross inequality. A situation where you have a Bayelsa state, like my governor just alluded to that fact, a state that produces much of the wealth of the country. And when it comes to the level of sharing that wealth to the sub-nations in the country, Bayelsa state has just 8 parts, and some are having up to 40. We are not jealous of that. The argument of our fathers, the argument of our founding fathers, the time of Melford Okilo, to Dapa Brays, to the Alame Sayers, to Harry Sirake Dixon, and of course the Ediri, it has remained the same. The clarion call is, let there be equity, fairness, and justice. He that produces more should benefit more. And of course, we must maintain that brotherhood of saying, yes, it's true, one state might have natural resources more than the other ones, and that is the essence of having a federation. Let that state that has more benefit more, and of course, let go part of it for the general interest of all of us as a family. In Bayelsa state, with 8 local governments, and yet, when you look at the statutory balances of the country in terms of finances, Bayelsa state is about one of the highest contributor to the wealth. Do we look like a state in the eyes of other Nigerian leaders? This is another moment, like my governor will say. It is time we have a national dialogue on the structure, the creation, and the administration reforms of local governments. We have started in Bayelsa State, yes, yielding very positive results, but the question is, 8 local governments for Bayelsa State, the homeland of all the Jos? Are we actually part of this country? Who is that leader in this country? In the National Assembly, whether Senate or House of Reps? At the National Executive, the Federal Executive Council, Mr. President, and the National Security Advisors. Let us all look into it. Political pundits are also saying this is not fair. All men of good conscience must understand this imbalance largely undermines our existence as a people, Ijaw people, Bayelsa people, and of course, why are we Nigerians?
You think a national dialogue will be first steps or the platform on which this, what you call the imbalance, will be rectified? Because there have been some dialogues, some conferences in the past. None of them saw the light of the day.
Yeah,
so this one you're proposing now, is it yet another talk shop, or are you envisaging another strategy towards righting these perceived wrongs?
Well, as Jaws and as Bayelsans, we believe that the best way to create a good country for all of us is to always engage in diplomacy. And one of the main frontiers of diplomacy is engagement in terms of discussion. Dialogue is all that we need as a country. Yes, it's true. There may have been many reports, the waste reports, etc. reports. Some of them have been having romances with dust in closets. But don't worry, be happy, dear Nigerian. Let us always discuss. For us as a people, we believe that when we discuss, much of the things that are very painful at the depth of our hearts will be unraveled for others to know. We want the world to understand that the pains of local government deficits in Nigeria is not just about Bayelsa State. Yes, it's true. There could be some states that are having up to 40, 44 local governments, but are they faring well as local governments? And that is why we're saying, when the governor of Bayelsa State calls for a national dialogue on reforms, creation, and of course, management of local government administration, it's all about the national interest. It's not about Bayelsa interest. And of course, the world converged in Bayelsa State a few days ago, and all speakers, National Union of Local Governments, employees, and of course, Medical and Health Workers Union, their entire leadership echelon, was in Bayelsa State to celebrate the breakthrough we've been able to make in terms of local government reforms. The thing is,
yes, because if you're asking of reforms at the national level, a lot of people want to find out whether you're doing any reform, carrying out any reforms within, because charity, they say, begins at home.
In Bayelsa State, largely what the governor does is to revolutionize the concept of leadership. We can't be building critical infrastructure, and of course, stepping up the uptake of Medicare and Medicaid, of course, building fantastic environment, learning environment for our kids and world so that they become better citizens in the future, either for us as Jaws or for Nigeria and, of course, humanity as a whole, without looking at the challenges of local government administration in the country. We have engaged in local government reforms in Bayelsa State, and the outcomes are far-reaching. I just listened to your intro here when the National Union of Local Government Employees chairman was speaking, and he said he's calling on all governors in Nigeria to go down to Bayelsa State to understudy the strategy of local government reforms, which is so efficacious. The question is, are Bayelsa civil servants, or perhaps let's put it in difference, local government workers feeling the wonderful outcomes of it? Yes. And that is why we just saw a few days ago that the convergence of the entire echelon leadership of Norge and Maho in Bayelsa State was to celebrate a breakthrough, where we can say it proudly, and I can beat my chest to say this in the global platform. There isn't a single retiree in Bayelsa State who disengaged from the local government service that hasn't been paid up to August. Not even one. All gratuity, pensions, death benefits, zero. There is not a single one.
I know there was an accumulation of backlog.
Yes, before. In fact, what happened last week was payment of 12 billion naira cash. Look, were there any governor in this state? No governor in this country, rather, is willing to do that. Over a period spanning to a couple of years, heralding to this one, we were trying to clear a backlog of about 22 billion naira. And last week, we came out with a resounding confirmation of our local government reform strategy of saying, let us clear everything and give Bayelsa State a clean bill of health. There were celebrations in home fronts, on the table, the dinner, the kitchens, in the health sector, kids going to school. Their parents were able to do everything alongside what the government is even providing. Why? Because the elders, the senior citizens of the state, have been given a new lifeline, where you say in Bayelsa State, the month you are disengaging from local government service as a retiree, that is the month you're paid your gratuity. Can any governor dare that? Yes, they should. They should, because in Bayelsa State it has been done. And the world is saying, when we talk about local government reforms in this country, and
well, you know, as you recount these as a success, I was just ruminating through my mind, perhaps how low governance has sunk in Nigeria, where payment of salaries and gratuities and pensions become big news. Because in some states of the Federation, even oil producing states that get 13% derivation and so much internal revenue, payment of salary has been problematic. There's always a backlog.
I think we like wearing the garments of our governor when we discuss issues of this nature. He did say while he was being conferred with the honor of the best, the champion of local government reforms in Nigeria. He said these are things that should not only be taken for granted, because one of the reasons he was elected was to perform statutory duties, payment of salaries, payment of pension, gratuities, and death benefits to senior citizens of the states. Here in Nigeria, people who disengage from the service after 35 years, or of course 65 years, as the case may be, they are forgotten. They die without having anything. They can't build houses. They can't pay their humanity. See, look, mankind. And so when you see a governor who comes to do what ordinarily should be taken for granted, the whole country is celebrating Diri. Diri is a different governor. Why? Because he has come to do the needful. What is the needful? Doing that which is statutory responsibility of a governor. But then, families, communities, shanties, environment are saying, this is all we need, just like giving water to a people. When a state or a local government provides water, then there is celebration that, oh, water has been given. But water, these are the necessities of life.
Basics of life.
Giving light, for example. When you give light to a people, it's not what we should celebrate.
Beyond this prompt payment and clearing of backlog, what the issue, another issue that's open for discussion is, based on the Supreme Court's judgment on financial autonomy of local councils. Let's share the Bayelsa State experience. To what extent has it been implemented there? Because across the nation, we still see stories of governors not ensuring that allocations get to local councils and all that. And even when it gets to them, they have a way of pulling the resources out as soon as it lands.
Yeah, I think everything we want to say with strong confirmations. Just like a few days ago, when the National Union of Local Government Employees from national to state chapters converged in Bayelsa State, and they said it very clearly, without any ambiguity, that in these states, they have confirmed beyond reasonable doubt that not even a penny of local government funds are touched by the state government. Not even a penny. Not even a penny. The reason is because in Bayelsa State, what we do as a state is to provide more funds for the local government to carry out their responsibilities. When Governor Derry came in a few years ago, precisely in 2020, it wasn't easy for the states. It wasn't easy because local government couldn't pay salaries. The allocation was not enough. So the governor decided that before I embark on the full stage reforms, let us provide the requisite support. So month after month after month, the Bayelsa state government provides extra funds to ensure that our fathers and mothers, sisters and brothers who are working within that tier of government get their salary.
That's funds from the state government.
From the states.
So those for the local councils are not enough to meet the demand.
It is as bad as that. When we are talking about Bayelsa State having 8 local government, the funds that come to the 8 local government itself, they are not enough to pay the salaries of workers, local government employees and health workers. So you can understand the gross anomaly that is existing. But bear in mind that, look, this is a government that is concerned about the welfare and prosperity of the people. The governor decided to give a directive. The directive is a percentage of the state finances must be given to local government monthly to augment, otherwise they will not be able to pay salaries. Now, that has been the pattern for a long while. And then the governor decided to look inward and say, let us engage fully into the reform. Now, when we are talking about this imbalance, it is troubling to say that, look, if we don't do things right as a country, we will miss it all. Remember, when Chief DSP Alamese of blessed memory was the governor of the state, he did create 23 rural development centers, bearing in mind that we have just 8 local governments. He wanted to give a sense of belonging, responsibility, joy to the people of Bayelsa State. And so within communities and local governments, constituencies, you now see that there are development centers. Do you know what is happening? The Bayelsa State government still provides funds for those development centers for payment of salaries and, of course, project execution. These are the ways we have been doing. But we are saying, look, if we're able to control what belongs to us, which is what you're talking about through federalism, the number of local governments we will create will determine on our readiness and financial buoyancy for us to deal with that. Now, you can give 40 local governments to a state, and the state is depending on Bayelsa State oil and gas to fund them. Meanwhile, in Bayelsa State, even the 8 that are given to us from the national government, the local government cannot fund because lesser and lesser amount of money is being sent to them. And that is why when we talk about the imperative for a national dialogue on local government reform, creation and administration and structure, these are not matters that any reasonable Nigerian should shy away from. In Bayelsa State, we are ready for that. The governor will continue to ask for it. And we know the world is listening. This is the time to talk. We have disengaged from the era of active militancy to a moment of diplomatic engagement.
A gravitation
and it's working for
from
us.
Militancy to advocacy,
yes,
and dialogue.
Of course, that is it.
Time for us to go on a break. When we come back, there's something important you raise will be dwelling on. 27 local council development areas. 23 different from the 8 local government councils, all in operation in Bayelsa State. We interrogate the operations of this local government, their financing and the impact they are making on the people, and also the constitutionality of it. Stay with us.
It's the 65th independence anniversary of Nigeria on October 1st, 2025, and on Africa Independent Television, AIT. It will be a day of special programming to mark the milestone. Live from the AIT studio, young Nigerians will take the stage, debating the future of our country, proposing ideas and voicing the vision of a new generation. Also live from AIT studio, key voices will dissect the past, present, and future of state creation in Nigeria that was a dominant issue in recent public hearings on constitution amendment. for an icing on the cake, Nigerians will hear directly from the leaders who helped shape Nigeria's path from civil war to civil rule, from crisis to continuity. They share their hopes, lessons, and vision for Nigeria beyond 65. Nigeria at 65, reflecting the past, reimagining the future.
In fact, this Ankokoro intervention you're talking about is one of the reasons why we have had steady food inflation in this country. And I will tell you why, because I was there.
I'm eager to hear.
You know, we escorted Mr. President then to launch the Ankokoro program with 2.6 billion naira for rice and wheat in Kebbi. Somehow, wheat was jettisoned. But rice attracted a lot of interest. People who were non-farmers, but because they knew they had connections, they took that money. Inside that Ankokoro, they developed what was called the prime uncle. The prime uncle is a person like you who has connections with somebody in either CBN or the business development finance. If you know them,
CBN.
yeah, within CBN, if you know them, they will package you and you can take 3 billion. And what you do is you bring a list of farmers that they are your outgrowers.
Yes.
So they give you money and then you say you want to help these people with inputs, with money for labor and all that, and you now pay in kind. So it is that idea that really made the Ankokoro a siphon. And I want to take you back to a time when there were pyramids.
The rice pyramid.
Rice pyramids on Airport Road.
Yes.
There were 10 of them, and they said they had 1 million bags of paddy at that time. We were invited there to give a goodwill message. But afterwards, a reporter like you called me and asked me my opinion. I said, well, this is very good. It shows that Nigerians have taken to the Ankokoro thing and we have optimized the production of rice. But what we should do from that point is, as we dismantle those pyramids, we should give the millers that paddy to turn into milled rice to crush the high price of rice.
Did that happen?
I don't know whether it happened, but I don't know whether you can say that you have had low prices for rice from that time on. So this is the beginning of inflation. Food inflation has never been as we experienced during this period.
Thank you so much for staying with us. We are taking a look at local government administration reforms and operations in Nigeria. Don Vedrada Abednego, technical advisor to Bayelsa State Governor on communications and strategy, speaking to the issues directing what we come, the attire we refer to in Nigeria as the resource control attire.
It's always
the symbolic Ijo.
Anytime you see a Bayelsan, within the national spectrum like this, there should be an identity about what we'll be asking for, resource control. This is the cap. We're always right.
And we hope to see the day to come into play.
Dialogue has never
eventually.
failed. That is why we believe that anytime we engage in one another, something positive will come out from. But when we use weapons of war, and then, of course, we'll all go into annihilation. That isn't fair for anyone.
Okay, let's come back to the issue of local governments. You talked about 23 development areas. I know when Bola Tinubu, as governor of Lagos State, formed those development areas, he ran into big troubles with the then president, Olusegun Obasanjo. But since then, other states have recognized the need for additional development areas. And that's what you have just told us earlier, is what is happening in Bayelsa State now. How are they funded, and how do their functions either complement or overlap with the existing 8 local council areas?
Yeah, I think one major reason why local governments are created and should be created is to take governance, closer to the people. And when governance is taken closer to the people, we are talking about dispensing services to the downtrodden in society. In Bayelsa State, the 23 local governments created by Chief DSP Alamesaya, and they're sustained to date, they reflect that desire of bringing prosperity to bear. Now, the entire structure or the organogram is comparable to that of the big local governments that are created by the National Assembly. Now, the only difference is that those who are there as chairmen of those rural development centers, they are not elected persons. They are persons that are appointed by the governor of the state. And one good thing about it again is that those who are choosing are from different wards within that enclave that make up that development center. Now, their functions are well defined. What are they? To provide, accessible roads to communities, to ensure that they protect our forest reserves. They also ensure that they take care of our markets. They take care of our waterways so that those who want to do XYZ things will not be able to do that. They also ensure that matters of environment are given due attention. And importantly, certain services like building of culverts and, of course, feeder roads are being done by this local. Remember, these funds that are being used to carry out these different assignments, they are not coming from, a statutory allocation from Abuja. No, it's the little that comes to our state in terms of allocation or, 13%, which is sometimes it's 5% derivation that comes, that will say, let us spread it. Let the prosperity go down to the nooks and crannies of our people. Of course, they do have what we call the chairman. We have also a head of personnel management in that place. They have the accountant, the TR, all the entire organogram. The only difference is that you don't have a legislative arm where laws are made.
And there is no constitutional backing.
No, when you say there is no constitutional backing, look, the duty, that is why we are asking as a state, and we are asking the national question. Shouldn't it be the responsibility of a state to determine the number of local government within its environment, bearing in mind that it has the financial capacity, to fund them? Now, we keep saying that sometimes some people think we are trying to antagonize the system or some other ethnic groups in this country. No. We do produce wealth in this country. The wealth of Bayelsa State is used to power so many things. I was saying it's a fantastic thing, but please, can you give us a fair share? And that is why some people say that, sometimes we over-push for this resource control. We over-push for this true federalism. Look, local government administration in Bayelsa State has been narrowed down to the point of saying households have a sense of identity. Look, the moment people show ownership and responsibility, then things are working. That ownership and responsibility comes only when the government does things rightly. Now, the system is open. There is frugality in the management of resources that come to the state. Now, when you say a local government, a chairman of RDA chairman, the people are looking at it with a special prism. The governor says this month, this is the amount of money that I'm doling out to the 23 RDAs in the state. And then everybody's watching.
Are they being publicized?
Everything, look, if you want to talk about the freedom of information law in Nigeria, go to Bayelsa State.
Is the state government still continuing with public account of inflows and outflows in terms of revenue that has been long associated? Is this still on?
It's part of what this administration inherited from Governor Henry Sirake Dixon, now a distinguished senator of the Federal Republic, that we have what we call transparency briefing. Every month, every penny, not just $1, every penny that goes to the coffers of Bayelsa State will be declared to the people of the state. And the governor goes further to say, look, XYZ amount will be used for recurrent. XYZ amount will be used for this. This is for capital. And of course, this amount is the one we are giving to RDAs. He will also mention this other amount is going to support or augment those local government, the only 8 that are unable to even take care of themselves. And so in Bayelsa State, when we talk about transparency and frugality, we are talking about a system that is people-oriented. You cannot say you're a citizen of Bayelsa State and you don't know what comes to the state, and you don't know the amount of money that is spent. That is why amount of money owed by the state, amount of money spent, which person has been. And let me tell you, a few days ago, like we just mentioned, when 12 billion was used to clear everything about local government, gratuities, pension, and death benefits, it was made open for everybody in the state to know. So it's not about Amechi wanting to know Don Evara to say, look, can my money be paid? No, the system is so open and transparent that, look, the predictability is there. The governor sits at the comfort of his office to monitor how far these reforms have been implemented, and it's yielding uncommon positives. In Bayelsa State, things of extreme complexities in the country where decisions are unable to be made are made so uncommon with strategic ease in Bayelsa State. Why? Because the governor comes to say, prosperity is about the people. It's not about his pocket. It's not about his community in St. Paul. No. The governor believes that when he provides his service to the people, It's making life better for us, whether it's in education, in health, in infrastructure. Now we are also talking about local government administration reforms. It is the best in the country. Remember, a couple of years back, we did introduce the student loan scheme, and everybody said, oh, it's not going to work. And when everybody saw that in Bayelsa State, there is no child left behind in terms of I am attending a high institution, I have dropped out of school because no fund. No, there is a pool of funds that the state government declares every month. We are putting XYZ millions into the finances of this directory.
Transparency is commendable.
It's uncommon.
And so one will ask when will it extend to other expenditures such as security votes.
Oh, no.
That's where the openness is hugely
even
demanded.
in terms of security. Yes, it's true, because of XY, existing maybe administrative rules, not necessarily laws, in terms of management of security votes. People in Bayelsa State hardly ask, what is the security vote being used for? Why? Because the governor came at a time when we say, oh, Nigerians are saying very cynical things about Bayelsa State. The Jaws are violent people. The creeks are turning torrent every day. There is kidnapping, XYZ. People say a lot of things. The governor came and told the people, if you vote me in, I will stop it. What is the security situation in Bayelsa State today? And I'm not here to talk about it, but you can say it for the right reasons, that Bayelsa State, whether anyone likes it or not, is not about us. It's the safest state in the country. A few days ago, European Union ambassador to Nigeria and ECOWAS was in Bayelsa State to have some visitation and engagement in terms of partnership and collaboration. Do you know what he said? He said, I am here in Bayelsa State, I'm breaching every rule. Why? Every protocol, every advice is against me going out. I go out even in the night. And my team of diplomats, they said they've gone around every part of the state and they've never seen a state as peaceful as Bayelsa State. Look, these things are not done with a magical wand.
I got that news, that report, and I also heard that the governor is calling for a review of the operations of the European Union. What is he uncomfortable with the current operational structure?
Governor Diri will not keep his mouth shut when it comes to things of inefficiency and things of national interest, and they are cutting corners. The European Union has a good intention to provide development within the nations. For instance, the 27 states, nations that are benefiting from their gateway strategic policy from the past 2 years to date. And now when you look at the chunk of money they're mentioning that they've plowed into development in Bayelsa State and in the Niger Delta, and comparatively look around, you say, no, it's not reflective. And so the governor was just stating the obvious that, look, if you want to partner with or you want to assist the people of this state, which is a fantastic idea, please ensure a much more open system, ensure that you direct your policies to people who are going to be the actual beneficiaries. Those who are working within your system must not be those who decide everything, and sometimes we are only seeing reports that XYZ things have been done. If you say community A has been given water, we want to see the water. If you say you have brought a cassava milling machine, we want to see it. If you say XYZ number of women and children or widows have been assisted, who are they? Where are their names? Now, if you don't do that and you operate at some level of exclusivity, then, of course, the governor will ask a question. What the governor said was in good faith. He will continue to say it, just like we are saying that certain things are not correct in this country. And if the governor of Bayelsa State does not say, which other governor should say it? Because, for example, in things of national funding in this country, much of the wealth comes from Bayelsa State, from Ijaw land. And so the leader of the Ijaw nation should stand tall to ask questions, fundamental questions, of saying whether it's local government, whether it's health, whether it's security, whether it's environmental degradation. For example, if you talk about, or gas and oil pollution in our environment, how far has the federal government gone in remediation, in doing the Ogoni cleaning? Is it only Ogoni? What about in Bayelsa State?
So beyond transparency, are there any other demand the state is making on the European Union? Does it also expand to other donor agencies and donor bodies?
Yeah, I think the governor's statement was quite an inclusive one. He did say that whoever wants to partner with the Nigerian state or the sub-nations in the Nigerian state should collaborate with critical stakeholders within the system and tap into the avalanche of opportunities so created so that the services will be delivered as at when due and to the direct beneficiaries, so that there will be an ease of monitoring and evaluation how effective these things are. So when we talk about transparency, transparency can't operate on the basis of shading things and beneath. So we want to pierce. The governor uses it to pierce open, to tear the veil, so that that which is hidden will be made open. And I think I looked at the face of the European Union ambassador to Nigeria and the ECOWAS when the governor made that statement, and he turned back to look at his diplomats. And of course, the managers, the Nigerian managers and other African managers,
Members of the
some of them bowed their head, not in shame, but in shock. Why? In Bayelsa State, we say things the way they are. The only thing we have not tried to say, and this government will not say, is to say things that are not a reflection of the truth.
Speaking of transparency, there's this MOU, Memorandum of Understanding with the Turkish firm. How much of the MOU was shared in terms of details with the rest of the people?
Yeah, I think it's important to also first give credence to President Ahmed Bola Tinubu for ensuring that certain things that were like on common bottlenecks were taken away. Those bureaucratic bottlenecks were taken away. And matters of energy generation is no longer that of an exclusive list, but of course states do have powers to do that. In Bayelsa State, before you talk about the MOU, the governor realized that, look, we cannot achieve what we intend to achieve when we keep swimming in the ocean of darkness. A state cannot be without power. We can't invest so much in our youths, and we keep saying we're building a new platform for young entrepreneurs when there is no energy sufficiency. In Bayelsa State, and let me say it for the right reasons too, by December this year, emphatically, by December this year, Bayelsa State will be the only state in this country again, that will have 24/7 uninterrupted power supply in Nigeria. That is what we are going to do. That is what will be done. Now, having said that, the governor believes that, look, whereas we are talking about that, there are other sources of energy that we can tap into. One of them is the sun. The sun is just there being wasted. The wind is being wasted. So what do we need to do? And Bayelsa State is so privy to this avalanche of opportunities where any way we want to get energy, whether it's from gas, whether from sun, whether from wind, or from whatever. Now, what have we been able to do? The state government went into collaboration with a Turkish firm, globally renowned firm, and they went to Bayelsa State, and what they want to do is to manufacture solar panels so that Nigerians will stop going to Dubai, will stop going to Germany, stop going to Ukraine, to France, and Italy to get solar panels. The company has come. They are the firms that are producing those countries. They want to come and produce here in Bayelsa State so that Nigerians will stop doing that. Remember, our intention is to ensure that, look, we don't only power Bayelsa State in terms of energy, but we create platforms to increase the IGR of the state, to create job opportunities, and make Bayelsa State an investment heaven. And that is why we continue to ensure that all the paraphernalia that will make Bayelsa State attractive for investment are made. And so the company came. The entire echelon of their leadership was in Bayelsa State. They signed the MOU, and of course, anytime soon, Nigerians will start saying that we don't only have energy sufficiency in Bayelsa State, but states that want to borrow same should come, and they can get the solar panels, and of course, understudy the Bayelsa strategy in ensuring that we become sustainable and stable in terms of energy sustainability.
Any time frame for this? Because there are so many MOUs that are hanging up there on the air and all that.
Yeah, I think it's very important. What the Attorney General of Bayelsa State did say at the close of that discussion was that the team will be going back and coming back within the next few months to ensure that they get the location of their manufacturing firm, and of course operations will commence almost immediately because everything, the T's and the I's have all been dotted. And I remember not just the manufacturing of solar panels, also for smart electric meters. Remember, one big problem that Nigerian electrical energy consumers have been complaining is about billing. In Bayelsa State, we want to start manufacturing. Now we say Bayelsa State, not the government, but government is enabling for private firms to come and manufacture smart electric meters so that when we have our own energy sufficiency by December, the billing will be done through smart meters. Number two, states like River State, Delta State, Edo State, the Niger State, of course, the length and breadth of this country should go to Bayelsa State and start having smart electric meters so that the consumers of energy in this country will not feel shortchanged like it's been done. Our own is to set a pace for other states to key in and say, yes, we're moving forward on the basis of bringing prosperity to bear, not just for Bayelsa State, but giving hope to Nigeria as a nation.
Okay, thank you so much, Evrada Betnego, Technical Advisor on Communications and Strategy to Bayelsa State Governor, for giving us your time and offering explanation on this development-based issue. It's always good to talk of development. It's not all about politics, because there's this undue concentration on politics rather than governance and development, and that is what we have done today.
I was also wondering whether maybe you would put a little bit of political question.
For another
and
day.
I was ready.
Yes.
However, thanks for having me.
Did you anticipate any political question?
I was careful, but this is AIT.
Yes.
It's a centerpiece for wonderful discussions. On behalf of the people of Bayelsa State and the John Nation, we want to thank this station for always willing to partner with us to ensure that, look, good governance is not about just the one that's elected. The media also standing on partners, and it's working for us. It will continue to work. Thanks for having me, and this is a place to be.
Thank you so much for that, and thank you also for being part of the discourse today. My name is Amicha, and have a good time.